They say there are moments in life that cleave your timeline in two, a clear before and a terrifying after. For me, that moment wasn't a car crash or a sudden illness, or even the moment I got the divorce papers. It was the two-word text from my wife, Sarah, followed by the deafening silence that came after. Taking our son to the park. Simple, right? Normal, even. Except hours passed. Then a whole afternoon melted into a terrifying twilight, and there was no reply, no follow-up, no "we're home." I called, I texted, I drove to the park, and then, in a sheer, gut-wrenching panic that tasted like cold metal, I tracked his phone. What I saw wasn't a park. It wasn't our street or even our city. The little blinking icon representing my 7-year-old son, Leo, was moving. Fast, and it was heading straight for the interstate, hundreds of miles away. My wife hadn't taken him to the park. She was running, and she was taking my child. Was I wrong for unleashing a desperate, relentless, and possibly insane pursuit that dragged every dark secret we had into the light? Tell me, honestly, if you would have done the same thing. To understand the sheer magnitude of the betrayal, you have to know what we had. Sarah and I met in college. We were the classic opposites attract cliché. I was the steady, slightly boring engineer, all structure and future plans, and she was the vibrant, artistic free spirit who saw life in shades of color I didn't even know existed. We balanced each other perfectly. Our first few years were a whirlwind of adventure and settling down. We had a beautiful home, 2 dogs, and then the absolute center of our universe arrived. Leo, my son. He was everything I ever wanted and more. A thoughtful, kind, curious kid with his mother's bright eyes and my methodical approach to building things with Legos. He was my purpose, my joy, my entire world wrapped up in a slightly grubby, perpetually energetic small person. The cracks, looking back, were so tiny they were invisible to my structurally minded brain. They started after I got the big promotion, the one that finally got us out of debt and into a comfortable life. It demanded a lot of me. Late nights, early mornings, and a few business trips a month. I thought I was doing the right thing, that I was building the fortress of our future. Sarah, who had put her painting career on hold to raise Leo, started to withdraw. She'd always hated being confined, and suddenly our comfortable suburban life felt like a cage to her. I tried to talk to her, but she'd just wave it off, a forced smile plastered on her face. "It's fine, honey. Just a little tired. Go to work. We're fine." But we weren't. One day, I came home early, excited to surprise her with tickets for a weekend getaway, hoping to recapture that spark. The house was too quiet. Leo was at a friend's house. I found Sarah in her studio, surrounded by her canvases. She was staring at a half-finished painting, a stormy, dark thing, and she wasn't alone. Standing there, too close, his hand resting on her shoulder, was Mark. Mark was a pretentious, self-proclaimed artist she'd met at a local gallery opening, a guy whose beard was bigger than his talent, in my opinion. He reeked of patchouli and cheap cologne. The air in that room was thick with a tension that wasn't about art. It was palpable, disgusting, and instantly recognizable. The confrontation was explosive, but it ended with the predictable lie. He was just giving me feedback on the lighting. "David, get a grip." I wanted to believe her, I truly did, because the alternative meant the absolute destruction of my life. I gave her the benefit of the doubt, but I set boundaries. No more private studio sessions. She agreed, tearfully, swearing it was nothing and that she loved me. For a few months, things stabilized. We went to counseling. We tried to reconnect. I cut back on my hours. I thought we were fixing it. We even planned a summer vacation, something big for Leo. That was just 3 weeks ago. Everything seemed normal. We were discussing summer camp and school supply lists just yesterday morning. Then came the text. Taking our son to the park. It landed on my phone at 1:17 p.m. By 3:30 p.m., I started getting that prickly, ice-cold feeling on the back of my neck. No text back. No answer to my calls. I drove to the local park, frantically scanning the swings and slides. Empty. I tried her sister, her parents, Leo's friend's mom. Nothing. Everyone assumed they were with me or at home. By 5 p.m., panic had turned into something dark and surgical. I grabbed my laptop. I had installed a simple tracking app on Leo's tablet, a safety measure for if he ever got lost in a crowd, a thing I never in a million years thought I'd use to track my own wife. I accessed the data. That's when the world dissolved. The little blue dot wasn't at the park. It wasn't even moving slowly within the city limits. It was an unmistakable highway speed, tracing a line on the map that pointed south and west, a trajectory that would take them hundreds of miles away from our home, from my life, from everything we had built. My heart didn't just sink. It exploded in my chest, sending shrapnel of pure adrenaline through my veins. She wasn't just leaving me. She was kidnapping my son. This wasn't a sudden impulsive break. This was planned. The tickets, the vacation planning, the counseling. It was all a brilliant, agonizing performance to keep me docile while she packed a bag and formulated her escape. And then I saw the next terrifying detail. The location she was heading towards. It wasn't a random location. It was a small, dusty town near the border where Mark, the pretentious artist, had grown up and still had family. The affair wasn't over. It was the launch pad for a new life, a life built on shattering mine. I stood there, staring at the map, my hands shaking so violently I had to brace myself against the desk. My mind was screaming, but a cold, clear voice of pure instinct took over. I called the police, but they gave me the infuriatingly bureaucratic line, "We can't file a missing persons report or an Amber Alert yet, sir. It hasn't been 24 hours. She's his mother. She has custody." Custody. As if that nullified the deceit and the danger. That cold bureaucratic dismissal was the fire I needed. The only person I could rely on was myself. In a hyper-focused blur, I packed a bag. Wallet, keys, phone, laptop, and a prepaid burner phone. I drained my savings account, every cent I could move instantly. This wasn't going to be a quick trip. I jumped in my car, slammed the gear into reverse and started driving, following that little blue dot like a maniac, chasing the only thing left that mattered. I called a lawyer, a pit bull I knew from a colleague, and gave him the bare facts. My wife, Mark, the tracking data, and the destination. He told me, "Do not confront them. Get close but do not engage. Let the police do it." Easy for him to say. He wasn't watching his whole world accelerate away from him on a highway. I drove all night. Every gas station stop was agonizing, a potential loss of crucial ground. I kept calling Sarah's phone, leaving calm, non-accusatory messages. "Sarah, please call me. I'm worried. I see you're not at the park. Just tell me you and Leo are okay." I was trying to lure her into a false sense of security, to keep her from realizing I was on her trail. The silence was my enemy. I knew she'd turn off the phone soon, or ditch the tablet, but for now, it was a lifeline. The silence, the hours of driving, the sterile white glow of the dashboard, it gave me far too much time to think. I replayed every conversation, every argument, every subtle shift in her body language. The guilt was a physical weight. Was this my fault? Did I work too much? Did I stop seeing the vibrant woman I married and start taking her for granted? Did my pursuit of financial security drive her into the arms of a man who offered her a life of unconstrained, if completely impractical, freedom? I knew the answers didn't matter right now, but the questions kept pounding in my skull, fueling the rage and the terror in equal measure. So, that's the situation I was in. I was alone, rocketing down a dark, empty highway in the middle of the night, tracking my wife and son with an app, while the police told me to wait until she'd crossed a state line and established residency. I had to make a choice. Play by the rules and risk losing my son forever to a delusional, self-involved runaway and her artist lover, or take a huge, career-destroying risk and confront them myself. The lawyer said, "Absolutely do not engage." My father's voice echoed in my head, "Never make a rash decision when your emotions are running high." But my gut, the primal, protective part of me, was screaming, "Save your son." Before I tell you what happened next, and how I finally came face to face with the betrayal, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have pulled over, called the police again, and waited? Or would you have floored it and continued the chase? I really want to know what you think." I drove on. The sun was just beginning to streak the sky with pale, desperate colors when the little blue dot finally slowed. The tablet was stationary, resting just outside a tiny, run-down motel complex on the outskirts of that dusty border town. I pulled into a nearby gas station, a shabby place that hadn't been updated since the 80s, and parked behind a dumpster, keeping my car out of sight. I checked the tracker again. It hadn't moved in 20 minutes. This was it. My hands were steady now. The terror had been replaced by a laser-like focus. I changed into a plain hoodie and dark jeans. I took the burner phone, leaving my main phone in the car. I didn't want any stray pings giving away my position. I walked the 2 blocks to the motel, moving with a terrifying stealth I didn't know I possessed. The motel was called the Desert Rose. It looked like a setting for a bad country song. I scanned the lot, my eyes settling on a beat-up, dark-colored sedan parked in front of room 14. Mark's car. My stomach churned, but I kept moving. I crept up to the window of room 14. The blinds were cheap and thin. I could hear muffled voices inside. I eased closer, my ear pressing lightly against the glass. I heard Sarah's voice, sounding tired and brittle, and then I heard Leo. He wasn't crying, thank God, but his voice was small, confused. "Mommy, why did we drive so long? Is Daddy coming?" The sound of his innocent question, the vulnerability in his voice, hit me like a physical blow, wiping away the last vestiges of doubt. This wasn't a choice. It was a rescue. I stood up straight, took a deep breath, and didn't knock. I used the element of surprise. I put my shoulder to the door and hit it, hard, right next to the lock. The wood around the frame was old and rotten. With a sickening crack, the latch gave way, and I stumbled into the room. The scene was exactly what I dreaded. Sarah was sitting on the edge of the bed, her face pale with exhaustion and shock. Mark was standing by the window looking smug and instantly turning to surprise, then cold fear. And there was my son, Leo, sitting on the floor playing quietly with a small toy car, his back to the door. For a moment, all time stopped. "I was an avenging fury," the quiet engineer finally snapped. "Where are the bags?" I didn't shout. My voice was low, deadly, and I think that's what terrified them most. Sarah instantly found her defensive fire. "David, what are you doing? You broke down the door. Get out." "Don't you dare," I hissed, taking a step toward her. "You texted me you were taking our son to the park. You drove him 500 miles without telling me. You broke the law, Sarah. You kidnapped him." I pointed at Mark, who was now inching toward the bathroom door. "You did this with him? This is the grand, beautiful life you ran away to? A cockroach motel with a failed artist?" Mark finally spoke, his voice shaky and pathetic. "Hey man, calm down. We were just—" "You don't talk to me," I cut him off, my eyes never leaving Sarah's. "You're done. Your involvement ends now." I walked past Mark straight to Leo. I knelt down. "Hey buddy, did you have a good drive?" Leo looked up, and the relief that washed over his little face was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. "Daddy, you came. I missed you. Mark says we're going to live with him and draw pictures, but I like our house." I hugged him tight, feeling his small, trusting body against mine, and the tears I'd been holding back finally broke. They were silent, hot tears of relief and rage. "We are going home now, Leo, right now." I didn't ask Sarah for permission. I didn't need it. I stood up, holding Leo's hand. Sarah was crying now, truly crying, but not with repentance. "David, please, don't do this. I was so unhappy. I need a life where I can breathe." "You had a life, Sarah. You had a beautiful family. You just chose to throw it away for a man who can't even afford a decent motel room," I said, my voice completely devoid of emotion. "You can come back and face the consequences of your choice, or you can stay here with your freedom and your paintbrushes. But Leo is coming with me. If you try to stop me, I'm calling the police right now and telling them you kidnapped him across state lines. Your lawyer will explain the charges." I pulled out the burner phone and held it up. That was the move that broke her. She looked at Mark, who was staring at his shoes, then at me, then at Leo, who was clinging to my leg. The fantasy of the grand escape had crashed into the gritty reality of a child custody battle and criminal charges. "Go, David," she whispered, her face crumbling. "Just go." I didn't say another word. I walked out of that room, Leo in my arms, and didn't look back. We drove nonstop back home. The aftermath was brutal. I filed for divorce immediately. The evidence of the tracking data, the premeditated deceit, and the long-distance flight was all the ammunition my lawyer needed. Sarah contested the divorce, trying to paint me as the neglectful, workaholic husband who pushed her away, but the facts of the Desert Rose Motel and the interstate tracking were irrefutable. She lost. I was granted full sole custody of Leo, with supervised, restricted visitation for Sarah. Mark vanished, going back to his family's dilapidated house, likely relieved to escape the drama of a family he never should have tried to destroy. It took months for Leo to settle back into a normal routine. He still asks about his mom sometimes, and I tell him the truth in an age-appropriate way. "Mommy needed to find a different kind of life right now, and she loves you very much, but she made a very bad choice that hurt us all." I stepped away from the intense job, found a better balance, and put Leo first. The financial comfort is still there, but now, so is me. I am present. I am here. The scar of that betrayal will always be with me, a deep, jagged reminder of how quickly the world can turn upside down. But every morning, when my son rushes in to hug me, I know I made the only choice possible. I followed the dot, and I saved my world. This whole mess has taught me a hard lesson. Trust is a beautiful, necessary thing, but sometimes a father's paranoia is just pure, life-saving instinct. Like this video if you were on my side, and you would have chased them down just like I did. Subscribe for more stories like this one, because honestly, I still have a lot more I need to get off my chest. And please share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did Sarah deserve the harsh judgment she got? Was it wrong of me to break down that door? I need to know what you think. I'll see you all in the next story.